Mr. Saeed, thanks for joining us. Happy National Chocolate Day or Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Freedom of speech does not guarantee freedom from consequences of the speech that you've made. Of the arrest of a number of journalists over the past few days concerning publications they've made or comments they've made on social media, which the security officials have found to be problematic, and so invited them to answer some questions. What are your initial thoughts on these developments?
Well, I think in the first place, the Media Foundation for West Africa is concerned with the creeping recklessness on our media landscape. We did an exercise called the ethics monitoring, and that was from 2020 to 2021. It spanned a year, and 1,710 ethical violations. 1,710 ethical violations
within the period.
Within the period, and so we are quite concerned about low standards and lack of regard for ethics and professionalism.
So the infringements that you talk about, explain to us what some of those would be like.
Some of them were inaccurate and false information. We also recorded incidents of insults and other infractions. So we are quite concerned. We also did the monitoring of electoral campaign language, and some of the journalists who have had themselves in trouble were copiously cited in that exercise. So to that extent, we will say that we are quite concerned, and we think that what is happening is unfortunate. Having said that, we are disturbed by the low standards and the recklessness on the part of some journalists. We want to also state our displeasure at the manner the police are getting involved in these infractions. If you look at the legal framework that regulates our media, it's been configured in a way that would stay the heavy hand of government and allow civil processes to regulate the media space. In all the cases that we have seen, they are matters that could have been handled through the civil process. For example, we have the National Media Commission, and if somebody makes an allegation that another person feels has injured their reputation, you have recourse to the National Media Commission. The National Media Commission would be able to handle the matter by calling the erring journalist to book. Besides that, you have the option of bringing civil action for defamation against that person. If we ignore all these and go the way that the government is going, then we are making mockery of the decriminalization of libel.
Do you think the police has mishandled what may be a legitimate reason for invitation of a person to explain comments they've made?
Well, in these cases, I think that it has not been invitations. There have been arrests. Some were even picked up. From their media houses, and so it's not a matter of invitation. And if the police should invite, then the police are going to investigate a crime. But as I said, these are not strictly criminal matters. So if somebody has complained about a publication let us know. In all these cases, apart from the one involving Boama or Heneba Boama, where we know that the Attorney General was the complainant, in all these have not told us who the complainants are.
Where there is no complainant, so assuming that I have made certain comments that have been found to be unacceptable, and the person that I'm talking about has not come out to charge me with any legal case, is there a case for the police to follow?
No, there is no case for the police to follow. It is the National Media Commission, which, even without any complaint, judging that whatever the person said might be in bad taste, might have offended public sensibilities, call the media to order as far as the ethical breaches that may have been committed is concerned. But if it is a case of somebody's reputation being injured, it is up to that person to take up the issue. And in our jurisdiction, it is civil libel and not criminal libel. And so the police have no business at all being involved in that space.
I've heard some people insist that because of the law enforcement role that the police it is to maintain law and order that is the reason, the basis for which it does some of the things it does. And so when they perform their mandated functions, it's more about the benefits outweighing the costs. And so we should be able to accommodate what the police needs to do, even if it makes us uncomfortable, so that they can protect all of us when we need protection, especially on security matters.
Well, the police are acting illegally in this case. For example, as I said, that of the boss of ASEPA. This is a gentleman who made an allegation. The Ghana Armed Forces exercised that right of rejoinder and came out to deny what he put out. If any person feels injured by what he said, that person has to go to court. But the police go and arrest the person and put him in jail. And detain him. That is against the spirit of the decriminalization of libel. So the police are saying, or they may say that they are acting to secure the peace and security, but they must do so within the law. And in this case, the police are interfering where they are not supposed to be.
I would ask next what kind of signal this sends to journalists, because now we even have citizen journalists and we have activists and social media influencers and all that who play within the same media space. So what would it mean for the conduct of these persons?
Yes, you were asking how that affects the media. Unfortunately, I see the backlash against what the police are doing to be something that can even encourage reckless journalism.
Reckless journalism.
Because the balance of public sympathy has been with the journalists who have been arrested. And I must admit that some of the pronouncements that have led to the arrest are quite in bad taste. And yet, because the police overreacted, if you look at the balance of sympathy, the public sympathizes more with the journalist, and therefore the intended effect of deterrence is not going to be achieved, unfortunately. The
fact remains, the fact that other comments have been made in the past that has been allowed to slip, does that mean if those comments were wrong, they should be allowed to be perpetrated by other people? And so perhaps, and I'm only suggesting that perhaps the police's stand is, we've done the wrong things for so long, we are no longer going to tolerate it, and it must start from somewhere.
I agree with you. If the police decide that they have condoned wrong for so long and are now resolved to tackle illegality, that's something that nobody can argue against. It's laudable, but the point remains that in doing the right things that you have set yourselves up to do, you do it in accordance with the law. And as my colleague just said, there have been breaches in the way the police themselves have handled the issues now. It's important that if things were done in the past and they were not prosecuted, today when we want to prosecute, we do that bearing in mind the circumstances and also the context. We have kind of increased the political temperature in the country unnecessarily. All these issues could have been handled in a way that will not generate the kind of anger, the kind of anxieties and the recriminations. So it's important that we always look at the least confrontational, the least problematic, and the more conciliatory way of handling issues.
We are also, and I'm trying to put some of the ideas, perhaps, and I'm only suggesting this, perhaps that's what may be working in the minds of the police service as we speak. Perhaps because of the tensions already brewing in the sub-region and the fact that we've seen pockets of resistance growing into numbers that have crossed regional lines and moving into other territorial spaces, the police are now more than ever, more determined to clamp down on any suggestion of illegality, especially when it comes to a coup. And that case is being called this morning. We understand that Oliver will be in court today, so we won't prejudice anything. But we're looking at these things in the broader term of our own national security. When we've seen a coup in Mali, we've seen a coup in Burkina Faso, and so tensions are high. They do have every single right to spot rising threats and extinguish those flames before they become full-out fires, don't they?
Well, I think that the comments we've received from viewers vindicate our position here, that the approach of the police has rather attracted public sympathy for those who are supposed to have committed an offense. And that should be a call on the police to revise their notes. We should also be mindful of the signal we are sending outside of this country by these arrests. These are the kinds of situations that we hear from countries that we normally consider to have repressive governments. We cannot do the same and still pretend that we are democratic. So we are measuring ourselves against the best practices and standards. And if that is what we want to do, then we are not doing good enough. President Trump was, he had a reputation for being dismissive of the press, molesting the press at press conferences. And we cannot say that under him, the media in the United States just lost its bearing and became irresponsible. It was that Trump was not able to bear the few excesses and sometimes the very critical comments and remarks that the media make against him. So the government must understand that its response to some of these provocations are the tests of its tolerance and its democratic credentials. I will conclude by reiterating that we concede that there's been irresponsible journalism and irresponsible statements in the media space, but the approach to curing it has not been the best. The media are posing a greater risk of injury to our democracy, but the government approach is posing a risk of greater injury to our democracy.